today Jeff Bond, who several of us know, and Jeff is on one hand part of a development team for apps, but on the other half, Jeff, there's another side of Jeff that we found that's truly fascinating and I think beneficial for us in case we're not doing apps. If we need apps, great for Jeff, but if we don't need an app at the moment, then Jeff's got some real good insights. So Jeff, I'm going to turn it over to you.
He's
Thanks,
also
Hal.
a
It's
heck
great
of
to
a
be.
third baseman, for the record.
I think is probably the better phrase there. It's been a couple of years, so don't get me out there anytime soon. Well, it's good to be with you all. A lot of familiar faces. I've really valued this group during the pandemic. I think we could all agree it's been a long year, but while we're physically distant, it's so good to be socially connected with a great community. I was curious, so in addition to those that have listened to podcasts, maybe by a show of virtual hands or real hands, how many people have thought about or started their own podcasts? Cool. So part of the 2 million, right? We're all out there, and I think we're in a world today where we understand that content is incredibly powerful, and we need to find ways to connect with a community and to build community and to have a platform in which we can do that. So I started Chat with Leaders, a couple of my co-founders, early last year when the pandemic started. So I was going to share with you guys a little bit about that story and kind of the journey and things to consider while you're launching your podcast. And I love hearing stories like yours, Uli, where you're thinking about it, you're taking action on it. And I always encourage people that I'm talking to, particularly if they have a great, they're a great thought leader in their industries, to do it, because it's so gratifying in so many ways. So I'll go ahead and share here. I know we got limited time, so we'll go through it. So again, Jeff Bond, I'm with AppBarry. We build custom apps. We're all here in Atlanta. So if you ever need a developer to help you build an app, we can do that for you. Chat with Leaders is the podcast. So we're going to cover here reasons to start a podcast, kind of the why behind it. If any of you who knows of Simon Sinek can start with why. Have you ever listened to that one? So I always like to start with why and what our why was, and the who and the how and the what, and kind of the definition of success. And then we can open it up to some dialogue here at the end. So different reasons to start a podcast. There's lots of reasons. First of all, I referenced this article right here to pull up these particular 10, but audio content is super convenient for the consumer. It's really hard to sit down and watch a video. Pardon me?
Go ahead and share your screen.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I did. I guess that would help.
That's got it. You're good.
Yep. So this is what you missed. Boom, boom, boom. So reasons to start a podcast. I referenced this article right here of why to start, but there's so many reasons. Like I said, first of all, audio content's convenient. So it's easy to listen to one while you're taking a quick walk around the block, or you're in the car, or you're just going through your morning routines or washing dishes. That's kind of my podcast listening time when I'm doing my daily chores here at home. But it's such a great piece of information. If you're interested in learning, being a lifelong journey, it's a great content medium for that. You can build an audience with that and build community. It doesn't cost much to get started. We were really fortunate to be able to just pick up simple things like a camera and a microphone and use Zoom, which is a platform we had already to record the episodes. You can really increase the size and value of your network. So again, I started this early last year, and I would say I've probably built more of a meaningful community over the last year than I have over the course of my 20 plus years in business. So, and a lot of really interesting new friends and platforms and opportunities to speak. And so number 4 has been huge for me. You can make money for your show. A lot of people kind of go into it with that intent to monetize it immediately. That really wasn't my intent in the beginning. It was more so to serve in the community and to really prop up servant leadership. And I've always been a student of leadership and have always really loved listening to podcasts. And so I thought that this would be a good kind of marriage of passion and purpose to live that out in the community. But that's kind of leading into some new interesting opportunities here recently that may give me opportunities to monetize it. Number 6, to position yourself as an authority in your industry. Now, leadership and apps are a little bit different. However, I'm talking to a lot of people that are of influence in their companies, and it's certainly led to conversations about, hey, we do need to build a custom app for our business, or we're experiencing this business problem, and we'd be interested in learning more about the services that you guys have to offer. So that kind of leads into number 7, to promote your products or services. So while I probably would advise to create a podcast like you are, Uli, that's kind of synonymous with what it is you do as a business or a service, even if it's slightly different, as long as you're connecting with the right kind of decision makers out there and leaders, then it can certainly go hand in hand. Hearing your voice does make it more personal. I think people are always looking to connect a little bit more relationally to folks, and to hear their story through voice is just one of those things that really does make a difference to the listener, and helps them feel more connected to you. Really doesn't take a lot of time to maintain. I'll kind of go over a little bit of the framework of how we organized it. But once you set up kind of your process plan, it's just put it on repeat, and keep it real simple, communicate with your guests, and you can really continue to do what it is you do best. And hosting a podcast is incredibly fun. This has been one of the most richly rewarding years of my life, of just learning and talking to a lot of interesting people, and putting great content out there. So I highly recommend it. So my why, we really wanted to build community and pave the way to a brighter post-pandemic future. A year ago, we were kind of sitting here thinking, okay, we're on lockdown for 2 weeks, and we're trying to lead in our businesses while we're physically distant and remain socially connected. So I was talking to one of my mentors, Tim Smith, who's been in the Atlanta business community for some years. He's now with Stratfield Consulting, and we were both kind of lamenting over the change, but also kind of sharing how we are forging ahead faithfully during this challenging time. And it was such a great conversation. I said, wow, we really should invite more leaders onto a podcast or some sort of platform. We didn't even call it a podcast at that point, and share their inspiration and hope, and maybe that would edify us. And I really thought about it for many years. I had considered starting a podcast and employing that purpose and passion, and I feel like we're given a lot of gifts in our lives, spiritual gifts, ability to go out there and apply that, and it's important to use them well to serve one another. And so my purpose in life is to serve others, and I felt like this was a time that I could really keep people connected, and like create hope in a community. And I really felt like at that time that servant leaders were needed more than ever through the pandemic evolution. And I continue to believe in that as we got further and further down the line, the importance of true stewardship as leaders. And so we wanted to make sure that we were also stewarding our time as for-profit business leaders in our organizations. And so while we're investing time in this kind of nonprofit venture, we also, again, going back to that last slide, wanted to introduce our services, and could look back on the plan and say, you know what, this is time well spent for our business. So we're not where we are stewarding our time well. And, going back to the why, Simon Sinek, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And I think that is always important to convey. And that's why I wanted to start there. So my co-founders, Tim Smith, who I mentioned before, and Chris LaFay, when I thought of the idea, I was talking to Tim, but then I thought back to Chris, because him and I had done some video content in the past before, and I knew he had the wherewithal and the resources and kind of pull that together. And I think it's so important when you're entering into a co-founder type relationship that you find a kind of a trusted group of partners that have complementary gifts. And I really felt like with these two guys, we were able to share our alignment of purpose and vision, and then set clear goals and expectations from the beginning, and say, hey, are you truly in this? Are we going to really work together and get this done and stay committed, and build that foundation of trust and accountability? So definitely wanted to attribute a lot of the founding and the success to those guys. So how do we get started? We started by creating a website chatwithleaders.com, and I posted one of the most recent links. Uli was kind enough to introduce me to Senior Reed from Atlanta Business Growth Team, and I had a 2-part series with them. So I just posted one of our episodes there in the chat. So check out the website. And then we established operations. We worked with a great team, and we have been from the beginning. His name is Mario Pareca. He's up in Pittsburgh area, and he's got a great team of audio engineers and project managers, and they turn things around really quickly. We just post all of our files from the recorded Zoom, the show notes, and a profile picture of the guest, and they do all the magic on the background and create some marketing materials and audiogram. But we really wanted to make sure that we created content in a meaningful way. You know, there's a lot of podcasts out there. A lot of them sound like they were recorded on a phone or distant, and you want to be listening to something that has good kind of crystal clear quality and so forth. And so, you know, we wanted to make sure that we had a good order of operations and process that we could put on repeat. And, you know, we stored all of our show notes and the communication templates and everything that we would communicate with our guests into a Google Drive folder, and just kept everything very organized from the beginning. And I'm glad that we set up those operations in that way. So the brand, what are we all about? So at the beginning, we kind of thought with leaders, you know, we're all so busy. Short chats need to be the focus. You know, we wanted to keep it around 15 minutes, give or take, in terms of the episode, so that you could listen in a bite-sized way. But that there were meaningful ideas for those busy listeners to take away and hopefully apply in that day. As it evolved, I really became more and more drawn to the aspect of leaders who are using their influence as a force for good. So it's kind of drawn me to a lot of nonprofit leaders and a lot of B Corp leaders that are, you know, pledging their time and their talent and their resources to sustainability or social impact or social entrepreneurship. And that's really been a gift to be able to learn from some of those people that are making a tremendous difference out there. And then we wanted to share that applicable wisdom that could be immediately applied. And for those people that are doing good, how are they doing it? And how can that influence others in a positive way, so that collectively we can continue to become less polarized or less divided and more united, and in the ways that we serve in our communities and on our teams and in our personal lives. And then building community around that important dialogue. So predominantly, we've been building community on our LinkedIn page, Chat with Leaders, and it's been a great place to be able to post out the content and to share it, and really to also, you know, tag our listeners and give them content that they can be proud to share with their communities, which gives them a lot more brand equity, exposure, and lifts up their influence. Which is, I always say, it's not a show about us; it's a show about them. So. And then we brought in some presenting sponsors here, which is our companies, as well as Inspire EDU, which is a terrific nonprofit here in Atlanta that I support. So you want to set up your definition of success. You know, just commit all your actions to the right things that you believe in, and have discipline to create those repeatable steps and maintain simple and effective communication. It became easier and easier to get guests on the show as we started, because I would just ask everybody who else, you know, that's a servant leader that's using their influence as a force for good. And then they would send me 5, and, you know, so exponentially, you know, you have a list that's easy to go through. And adaptability. The one thing a lot of people struggle with, I think, is the starting point, you know, and how will people perceive it? What if it's not great? What if I sound stupid? You know, so I always tell people, just stop worrying about what other people think, you know, reduce your threshold of caring in that sense, and just do it. Learn as you go, be iterative, and get something out to market. Just commit your actions with your whole heart, and something that you're truly passionate about. And that authenticity will lead through. And there's a great podcast that I love. It's a leadership podcast by Craig Groeschel, and he says, "Be yourself. People would rather follow a leader who is always real than a leader that's always right." And I think that's so important in terms of authenticity. So, so I'd love to answer any questions and encourage you all to consider what you're all about in your business and in your own professional brand. And podcasting is such a wonderful journey that's been a blessing to me over this last year. So with that, I'll open it up to any discussion.
And people are welcome to either put a question in the chat or just jump in. We have a good sized
How
group.
often do you broadcast your podcast? Or is it
So
just, I guess, release it and people listen when they want?
Yep. So I release an episode every single Monday. We have been doing Thursdays on occasion with my co-host Chris. Tim has been more on the advisory level and kind of wrangles guests, and he's got a lot of great connections, particularly here in Atlanta. So he's been great in that. But he's just been so busy that he hasn't been able to record a lot. He did a few in the beginning, but I do it every Monday, and weekly is kind of good cadence. I feel like it's not too overwhelming, but I think some people will do it once a month if it's a big segment and takes a lot of planning, and you can kind of set up your cadence. But I think the consistency is more important than the frequency.
I'm always curious when I listen to podcasts. You get on Google Play or Spotify or Apple or whatever. I mean, do they take anything for that, or is that all kind of free? How's that work?
Yeah, you set up a hosting site. So for us, we use Omni channel, and then that pushes out to all of the other podcast outlets, which I know that we have an agreement with them, with Mario Pareca and his team, and I think they handle all that in the background. So I guess the short of it is that I'm sure there's something, a small insignificant cost to that, but I'm not totally aware of it because Chris set that up.
Jeff, I got a question. So also for our what we're doing here, how do you find guests consistently, and do you bank podcasts? Like, do you try to build up a library too? Or
Yeah, I did that in the beginning. So we created a list of all the people that we were interested in bringing on, that we thought were in our kind of center of influence and in our community. And so we had a running list of about maybe 10 people each at the beginning. And then we sent them an invitation saying, hey, we started a podcast called Chat with Leaders. We think you'd be a remarkable guest, to come on the show. And we did create a bank. I kind of went like pedal to the metal and recorded a bunch in advance. But because I was releasing weekly, and I think at that time in the beginning, we were only releasing weekly and I was sharing it with 2 other co-hosts. So I did this bank, but then it took me like several weeks and sometimes over a month to get that out to market. So I wanted my conversations to be relevant to the time in which we were speaking. And so I've learned to kind of slow down just a little bit and organize kind of my guest list. I use a platform called Trello just to kind of organize who I've invited and, what stage you're at in the conversation. And I try to record about 2 weeks out from when I intend to release, and I plan that out. So now I've kind of learned to slow that down because, I want the momentum to be there with the people that I have on.
And do you either reuse or repost or re-promote past material so that it gets more listenership?
Completely. Yeah. So I've always recorded on Zoom the video and the audio content. Like I said, the post-production team, they'll put together an audiogram, which is like a 1-minute clip of the episode to kind of promote it. And then you could put a link to the full episode on your website or whatever your hosting platform is, or if you're promoting through Apple, which is probably the most popular way to listen to podcasts. But then if you store that content, like I've used Google Drive to store all the Zoom videos and their profile pics and anything they're promoting, I want to continue to, over the course of time, nurture that relationship and nurture that promotion for those guests. And I encourage them to post and share it as well, because they have a community of supporters and people that love them and want to advocate for them. And so when they have content, it's always rewarding to see that community embracing, and celebrating the good work that they're doing. I particularly like when like a son or a daughter will come on and say, hey, good job, Dad, or good job, Mom. That always touches my heart to see that when the guests are lifted up by their families, but really their business community too. And like so many people will reach back out and say, I've gotten a lot of traction from this, and a lot of people have reached out to me ever since, and it seems like it's really providing value to them, which it's great to hear. Always very affirming.
I guess I'll ask one more question if it's okay. And I know you don't do this for business per se, but kind of the way we started this was asking people how are you keeping things on the rails during the pandemic?
Yeah.
Have you found that this helps your business?
Definitely. Yeah. I've definitely had a lot of net new business from the podcast, which has been great. And, typically my way of networking and finding new business was go to events. And just kind of meet people and hear their, challenges that they're going through, and listen for ways that I can be of service. And, there's less of these casual encounters that are out there. And so I am so glad that I created a platform to more intentionally stay socially connected and promote their content, because it's helped me make new friends and new professional connections, and, really grow the community. So, business has definitely benefited from it.
So are you saying that you're inviting clients or prospects onto your podcast to get to know them and help them at the same time?
Yeah, and not, not so intentionally say like, hey, I want to sell to this person and I want to use this platform only as a way to, create value for them first. I'm more of a referral based kind of salesperson, I would say. So if I have someone on the show, I say, hey, if you know anyone that could possibly benefit from app development, or, that could be a servant leader that would want to come on the show, so it's created new introductions even outside of the guests, particularly that I'm having on. So I don't go out and just prospect and say, hey, that's a person that I want to sell to, so let me invite them. So that's kind of the way it's all worked.
All right. So you've maintained your integrity.
I try to at all times lead with that.
All right. Well, we're about out of time. Does anybody have a final question for Jeff, either how he's picking his topic or getting an audience, or even a technical question? Before we go, we got one more, we got room
I just want
for,
to say thank you. It was a great presentation, Jeff. I made a lot of notes, and thanks for sharing the link to Senior. That's great.
Thanks, Oli. It's been
Okay.
so great getting to know you through this community, and I appreciate you sending Senior my way and some other people as well for the podcast. And I would invite any of you that are considering doing a podcast. I'd love to talk to you about it. It's been so much fun, and I welcome, just reach out to me on LinkedIn, and I'll send the presentation to you, Phil. I saw your note in here, and more than happy to share my story in more detail with anyone who's interested.
Thank you.
got it. And we will go ahead and we'll go ahead and post this as we always do, the recording of this version. As we wrap up, just want to call out, again, here's Jeff's contact information. Do want to call out, here we go. Little bit more humor from Jared about podcasts are hot, clearly with 2 billion of them now. That's it. Upcoming events next week. I think this is a really interesting conversation. What's the right way to express appreciation for your referral sources? Peter Velarde has a process for keeping in touch with your referral partners and friends. And Jane, who does swag, the two of them have some ideas that aren't necessarily as obvious as we expected. Derek's talking about what remote worker office space is like. So I think it's going to tag off of what Scott has been talking about really well. Kelsey's going to be talking about some more HR issues, and Lord knows we got them where we still are having COVID issues and expenses and rules and such. So we've got that. Minori should be with us on the 24th, and then we'll take a break for Memorial Day, and then Whitney will be talking to us about trends in B2B digital. So thank you all for joining us. Enjoyed your questions to complement Jeff's points of view, and let's stay in touch and keep helping each other.
Thank you, guys. Have a
Thanks,
wonderful
Jeff.
day.
Great job.
Thanks, Jeff.
We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Hi, guys.